In Wisconsin, neighbors of what Microsoft calls the world's most powerful AI data center say a constant hum has driven them inside their own homes. And now they're taking the company to federal court. It's the sharpest edge yet of a backlash that just put protesters on the streets in 42 states. While regulators, city councils, and even Wall Street are starting to push back. We begin in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, where Microsoft's $7.3 billion Fairwater campus, a facility the company has called the world's most powerful AI data center, is now the target of a federal class action lawsuit. Residents near the 315-acre site say that ever since it came online in April, a constant low-frequency hum from diesel generators, chillers, cooling towers, and condenser fans has pushed them indoors, disturbed their sleep, and made their backyards unusable. The suit, filed in the Eastern District of Wisconsin, covers everyone living within a mile and a half of the campus, roughly 1,000 people, and alleges the kind of noise that standard decibel meters barely register. Along with extreme light pollution, plaintiffs want damages, attorneys' fees, and a court order to stop the sound. Microsoft has blamed cooling fans running at high speed during startup, an explanation neighbors say they've been hearing for months. That courtroom fight is one front in a much larger revolt, and this weekend, the revolt hit the streets. Opponents of the data center buildout staged 142 protests across 42 states. The first coordinated national mobilization against AI infrastructure in American history. Texas, the nation's data center hotspot, hosted 18 events. Georgia had 11, California 8, with Pennsylvania, Florida, and Indiana close behind. The demonstrations were coordinated by HumansFirst, a group co-founded by a former Tea Party leader who compares this movement to the populist wave of 2009. In Botetourt County, Virginia, dozens of residents lined Route 220 to oppose a planned Google data center, with organizer Catherine Haddam insisting this is not a fringe crowd and not simple NIMBYism. The polling backs her up. Just 14% of Americans say they would welcome a data center in their own community. If you want to understand what's fueling that anger, look at Van Buren Township, Michigan. Officials there granted Google roughly $125 million in property tax breaks over 12 years for a data center known as Project Cannoli, planned near Detroit Metro Airport. The facility is expected to draw more electricity than 750,000 homes, an enormous claim on the regional grid in exchange for a relatively small number of permanent jobs. The response from some residents wasn't a petition or a lawsuit. It was a campaign to recall the entire township board. Recall organizers argue the board traded away the township's tax base and grid capacity behind closed doors, while big tech lobbying money shaped the deal. Whether or not the recall succeeds, the message to local officials everywhere is chilling. Approve a data center deal your voters don't like, and your job may be on the line. But not every government is rolling out the red carpet. Some are holding the line. In Wisconsin, the Public Service Commission has refused to reopen its data center tariff case, leaving in place some of the strictest financial rules in the country. Under the tariff approved in April, any data center customer rated below A- must post collateral, cash, a letter of credit, or a guarantee, before taking service from We Energies, Vantage Data Centers, Cloverleaf Infrastructure, and WEC Energy Group petitioned to loosen the rules, warning they could cost a company like Oracle more than $100 million a year in fees, and scare off the investors funding Wisconsin's data center boom. The commission simply declined to take the petition up, letting it die by operation of law. It's a quiet procedural move with a loud message. In Wisconsin, ratepayers come before hyperscalers, no matter how big the name on the application. That demand for transparency is spreading west, because in San Jose, activists say Google may be building a data center without calling it one. Blueprints for a planned Google campus reveal a 250-megawatt substation and banks of cooling towers. Infrastructure that advocates say looks exactly like a hyperscale data center, all behind a label that simply reads research and development. The distinction matters. An R&D designation can allow the project to sidestep the extra scrutiny, disclosure, and community review that data centers increasingly face in California and across the country. Google insists the site will be used for internal chip engineering, not cloud or AI services. But watchdogs reviewing the filings keep asking a simple question. If it has the power draw of a data center and the cooling plant of a data center, why doesn't the paperwork say data center? In an era of eroding trust, even a label can become a battleground. That fear of the unknown is exactly why some cities aren't waiting for a proposal to land. In Oshkosh, Wisconsin, the Common Council has directed staff to draft a formal data center moratorium. Even though no project has been proposed anywhere in the city, the driving concern is water. Residents on Lake Winnebago worry about what a hyperscale campus could mean for the local supply. And a citizen petition against data centers has gathered more than 1,500 signatures. Neighboring Omro is pushing back as well, making the region the latest place where communities are drawing the line in advance rather than in reaction. City leaders say the pause will give them time to write rules on water use, noise, and zoning before a developer ever knocks on the door. Because by the time one does, they argue, the leverage is already gone. Preemptive moratoriums like this were almost unheard of a year ago. Now they're becoming standard practice. Yet while communities pump the brakes, Wall Street keeps writing checks. Though this week, with noticeable hesitation, colocation provider C-Square went public on the New York Stock Exchange, raising $1.05 billion in one of the biggest pure-play data center IPOs in years. But the debut was anything but triumphant. Shares priced at $21, below the marketed range of $23 to $27, valuing the Brookfield-backed company at about $3.25 billion. The stock then closed its first week at $20.67. Under its own offer price, C-Square runs 64 data centers across 21 markets, focused on retail colocation rather than the hyperscale AI buildout. And it lost about $151 million over the past year on roughly $1 billion in revenue. The lesson from the trading floor: investors are learning to tell the difference between the AI gold rush and the rest of the data center industry. But if the IPO market was lukewarm, the leasing market is on fire. Which brings us to our kicker. CleanSpark, until recently known as a Bitcoin mining company, has signed a 20-year lease worth $6.6 billion with an unnamed, high-investment-grade global technology company at its campus in Sandersville, Georgia. The deal covers 175 megawatts of IT capacity, with deliveries beginning in late 2027, and it could be worth up to $11.6 billion if the tenant exercises its extension options. The mystery tenant also locked up exclusivity on CleanSpark's entire Texas portfolio, up to 885 megawatts of future capacity. CleanSpark's stock jumped about 10% on the news, and CEO Matt Schultz called the deal the completion of the company's evolution from crypto miner to diversified digital infrastructure platform. In this market, the ultimate currency isn't Bitcoin, it's land and power. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, subscribe, leave a like, and drop a comment. It helps us cover more of these stories.